Have got the classic dilemma at Spa. In qualifying it was bright, sunny, hot and dry. We're going to be starting behind the safety car. That is absolutely for sure. Take it from me. Yesterday it was hot, dry and sunny. This morning at 2 o'clock I got out of bed because the rain was making so much noise. I had to see how hard it was falling, and the answer, very hard. It's been raining all this morning. You can see, looking down at this classic Ardennes circuit, that it's wet. It's wet. It's wet in most parts. It's damp in the drier parts. The teams are going to have a real problem about which tyres to fit. Some of them may even decide to start on the normal dry weather tyres in the hope that it will dry out quickly and they'll get a benefit straight away when the others have to come in and change. I don't think that will be the case, but we'll have to wait and see. It looks good for Mika Häkkinen, to be honest. He's done well all the way through practicing. He took qualifying position. He was fastest this morning, but he's got two young guns alongside him. Jarno Trulli, who's only been on the front row of the grid once in his life at Monaco, and of course the fantastic Jenson Button, who is starting third on the grid ahead of Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher, the Rainmaster, who has won here 5 times in Belgium, one of them disallowed, but nevertheless, this is his circuit. It's anybody's guess. What's yours?
Well, I'm very surprised, really, in a way they're starting behind the safety car, but I guess they're mindful of the huge accident that happened a couple of years ago. But in my view, that wasn't because of torrential rain or standing water. David Coulthard got out of shape as they went over the rain gully and lost the car. So I don't particularly think that was a start situation as such, other than I think it was more like a normal accident scenario. But, however, the drivers have had the benefit of going around the rest of the track. Very, very long circuit here. We so often, as we saw in Hockenheim, on a long track where it's dry at one end and wet at the other. I was testing here last year in the middle of the year for Toyota in the Le Mans car, and it was snowing. The test actually got snowed off. So strange weather around here. Talking to 4 or 5 teams, some say it's going to rain very heavily before the end of the race. Others say it's not going to rain for the rest of the afternoon. Completely different scenario. But, of course, the drivers at the front, and Häkkinen in particular, will be very, very pleased about this safety car situation. He was nervous, clearly, in the press conference yesterday after qualifying, realising he's got Trulli alongside him, who's relatively experienced, and young Jenson just behind him, who he was quite clearly, without sort of being negative towards the younger guys, he was quite clearly concerned about it. So it suits all of those at the front. Michael Schumacher may well have been asking for the safety car start, but he probably had the most to gain by having a regular start.
Well, whatever, the La Source corner is the one that has caused problems at the beginning of many a Belgian Grand Prix. So Mika Häkkinen, I think, has got most to gain from this situation. He'll come behind the safety car. He'll know when it is going to pull in. He will have a clear track in front of him, and he'll have a car's length advantage over the rest. Well,
they're just taking the covers off, as you can see, and the medium wet that I showed you on the grid walk is the one that every car I can see out of the window has on. So, unsurprisingly, that is the tyre they're going to run. They don't need, there's not a lot of deep standing water anywhere, and I don't think they'll have aquaplaning problems. They will all have to have lifted the car this morning because the plank and the floor underneath can powerboat sometimes if there's a lot of standing water later on in the car, just aquaplaning off the road, literally because of the water pressure on the floor of the car, lifting the wheels off the ground. So the cars will be a bit higher. They will have softened them off with the anti-roll bars, softened the springs a little bit. Jenson Button 2 on those medium wets, and I think also they will have added some fuel to give themselves a bigger window. They noticed this morning after 12 laps of running the track was not fully dry at all, so they're expecting the track to take about 20 laps to dry, I think, unless the sun bursts through, and I imagine they'll be running just a little bit longer in this first stint than they would normally do so.
I would think that when the lap times come down to around about 2 minutes, and the pole position time this year was Mika Häkkinen's 1 minute 50.6 seconds, when the lap times come down to around about 2 minutes, we can expect to see them coming in and switch to dry tyres if it doesn't rain. My hotel proprietor, who's a bit of a weatherman, says it is going to rain, so again, we'll have to wait and see.
So I'm expecting when they get round to the end of this lap, Mary, that they'll just carry on behind the Mercedes-Benz. And, well, I have to say I think it's a wrong call. I know it's dangerous out there. I know it's terrifying. I've raced here many, many times in the rain. That first lap, heading up to Les Combes, you can't even see your own steering wheel sometimes. But, you know, we've started races here at Spa with 5 times more water on the track than they've got there. I really think this is an overcautious call this time.
Well, just let's remind you what the order is behind the safety car as they make their way down from Les Combes to Rivage, which is turn 8 in this 22-corner circuit, 4.4 miles long. Mika Häkkinen is leading round, and behind him is Jarno Trulli, the young Italian in the yellow Jordan. Then it's Jenson Button, Michael Schumacher, the Rainmaster. David Coulthard is 5th on the grid. Ralf Schumacher is 6th, so both the Williams BMWs are in the top 6.
So safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. Effectively, the clock has started for the race. And so they're counting this as the formation lap. As normal, this is part of the Grand Prix, just like the green flag lap would normally be as they go round to the grid, with the exception that there will be no start procedure. So the race starts now. My understanding of the computer here is the safety car will peel off into the pit lane, will not go through the bus stop, and it's then Häkkinen who becomes the safety car effectively, becomes the pace setter, but I think he'll be long gone by then, if he understands. And the teams will now be on the radio to the driver saying, safety car is in this lap, and that's going to confuse more than a few of them.
Yeah, and they have to hold station until they've gone over the start and finish line, and that, of course, is before La Source. Is anybody going to get the jump on the man in front of him or the men in front of him? It calls for superlative timing in this situation when the cars are already rolling on the track. Jarno Trulli having a look on the inside of Mika Häkkinen's McLaren. There's Ralf Schumacher. Jacques Villeneuve is well up. Watch him. He's in 7th position in the BAR. And this year he's not got through La Source flat out.
There's almost a dry line.
Eau Rouge, sorry.
There's very few of them. I don't think I've ever seen a trace in my life where they genuinely went flat out, and the green flags are waving. This race is effectively underway now.
So, safety car, we're looking at them as they come through the chicane, and the Belgian Grand Prix at racing speeds is on. Mika Häkkinen leads Jarno Trulli. Michael Schumacher has a look on the inside of Jenson Button as they go round La Source. No changes yet. David Coulthard still there in 5th position, and Michael Schumacher closing up marginally on Jenson Button as they come into Eau Rouge. It looks flat, it's anything but over the crest. So there is Button, Schumacher, and Schumacher is definitely closing on the Williams.
Yes, Button quite cautious through Eau Rouge there. Michael's got a run at him, but I don't think he's close enough. Coulthard's not far behind either, and now they're all in the ball of spray. So Jenson Button's got the visibility. Coulthard trying to go around the outside there of Michael Schumacher. So he appears to have some good straight line speed. That'll come in useful later on. Meanwhile, Häkkinen carelessly moving ahead at the front.
And still, as they come down to Rivage again, Schumacher is coming up behind Jenson Button, but cannot, of course, get past the Williams at this point in the race. Now, it looks to me as though the circuit is going to start drying out. We'll get a dry line emerging at some point in the future. Meantime, David Coulthard is right up behind Michael Schumacher, and Mika Häkkinen, of course, is stretching away. And David Coulthard on this lap has gone through the first sector faster than anybody else. It's Button, Schumacher, Coulthard, Häkkinen still leading. Jarno Trulli second in the Jordan, and in 6th place, Ralf Schumacher. No change there.
I can't imagine this pressure for a 20-year-old like Button to have Michael Schumacher bearing down in a Scarlet Ferrari in the early stages of his first ever Belgian Grand Prix. But look already at the dry line beginning to emerge as Häkkinen keeps moving ahead. Coulthard was quite slow in the middle section. He's dropped away now from the back of Michael Schumacher, but they're all very much line astern.
Now, let's make this quite clear. As this circuit dries out, it's going to be critical when they come in for dry weather tyres, because if you stay out too long on wet weather tyres, they overheat, they start to choke, they lose their tread, and therefore you lose grip. and it could be an inspired decision like the one that won Olivier Panis the Monaco Grand Prix in 1997 to change tyres that wins this race. But that is in the future. Meantime, there is Rubens Barrichello. He's gained 1 place in the Ferrari. He started 10th on the grid. He's got ahead of Johnny Herbert. Remember, Rubens Barrichello started 18th at Hockenheim for the German Grand Prix and came through to win it with an inspired drive. There is the race leader, Mika Häkkinen, going up to Les Combes on lap 3.
And Häkkinen already finding the need to go over on the wetter part of the racetrack to cool those wets. They were chunking this morning. They've got to somehow make them last into the first sensible pit stop window. I would have thought about lap 12, so that they can get through the race with only 2 fuel stops. So they need to conserve the tyres, and already Häkkinen going over to find some puddles. But everybody does that, and quite quickly, even the offline parts of the racetrack become much drier.
So they're round the very difficult Pouhon as we look down from the helicopter onto the circuit at La Source. Häkkinen leading the yellow Jordan, then Jenson Button, then Michael Schumacher. Behind Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, and then the Williams BMW of Ralf Schumacher.
Yeah, and there's Barrichello. The point of that replay, I think, is watching Barrichello passing Herbert. So that is that was a replay of the start, a very boring start, you have to say. And other than that move by Barrichello, very little has happened down the field as Häkkinen comes through Stavelot, heading down now towards Blanchimont.
Which is where the dry line is definitely emerging. The lighter part of the tarmac that you can see is the drier part. And you can see even now that there is spray coming up from the tyres. There's a lot of trees in that sector of the course. They release moisture and wetness onto the track for quite a long time. But Mika Häkkinen now is leading by 2.1 seconds at the end of the 3rd lap. He's just made the fastest lap of the race, 2 minutes 5.4 seconds.
And look at Button coming up the inside of Trulli. Jenson Button takes 2nd place with a great outbraking manoeuvre. Can he find the traction? No, Trulli's taking it back again. Button having to run wide because of the speed he carried into La Source and lost that place.
But that shows what James Allen was saying earlier on about Button and Williams and BMW being determined to win this race if they can is certainly absolutely right. Jenson Button attacking right from the start, and this is only his 13th Grand Prix. He's going for it again at Les Combes. Has a look round the inside of Trulli with Michael Schumacher still not making up ground. And meantime, of course, Mika Häkkinen is pulling away all the time. David Coulthard closing up on the Ferrari, and behind him Ralf Schumacher. It's 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th virtually together.
Yes, Häkkinen 1.5 seconds faster than anybody else on the last lap, and 2 seconds faster than most in the top 7 of the field. So Häkkinen really hooked up, found some grip, found some confidence. It's truly under pressure, and Jenson Button looking calm and still finding time to go over and cool those tyres a little bit. Look, virtually a dry line through Pouhon.
Yeah, and Button 0.4 of a second faster than Trulli on the previous lap. He's pushing all the time. Jarno Trulli is definitely holding up. Now, this is an enormous benefit for Mika Häkkinen, and the man who is really suffering at the moment is David Coulthard. Remember, he is 3rd in the World Championship, only 6 points behind his teammate. And if David Coulthard can't get ahead of Häkkinen and win this race, or at least finish in front of the Finn, there's a danger that he may have to resort to team orders from Ron Dennis and the McLaren team in future.
Now, if Jenson can stay close through Blanchimont, he must have a great chance of going down the outside of Trulli. I'm sure he's going to. And outbrake him. No, he's positioned his car wrong. He's let Michael through. Bad mistake there from Jenson. He went the wrong way completely. He needed to go around the long way around the outside there. He really snookered himself on that move.
Michael Schumacher then is attacking up to 3rd position. Jenson Button won't take that line down. He has another look. David Coulthard is still there. Behind David Coulthard is Ralf Schumacher, and Button attacks again. Hits Trulli, spins the car. Button keeps going and Coulthard gets through. David Coulthard has taken advantage of that spin there, and they go down to Eau Rouge together. This is fantastic. This is 180 mile an hour Grand Prix Formula One wheel-to-wheel racing.
Yeah, Ralph is through, so really 2 or 3 terrible corners there from Jensen, finally showing his inexperience. A clumsy move on Trulli. He came in too late. Trulli had already been surprised by Michael Schumacher. Jensen tried to capitalise on that, but there really was nothing else going to happen except Trulli turning in on him, and then managed not to make contact with Coulthard. Coulthard leapfrogged the pair of them, and then Ralf Schumacher making good on the move too.
Bitter goal for Jarno Trulli, who was doing so well and had qualified second, but now that's opened up things for Michael Schumacher. The crowd loves that. You can see the scarlet jackets waving because Michael Schumacher now is second to Mika Häkkinen. Mika Häkkinen has put up the fastest lap of the race in just over 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Remember what I said earlier on, when the lap times come down to about 2 minutes, we can expect them to start coming in for dry weather tyres, but that's not yet a while. And Ralf Schumacher has a look at David Coulthard now, and Ralf Schumacher is ahead of Jenson Button, unseen by us.
No, we covered that one, Murray. Ralf Schumacher cleared Jenson Button. They were side by side into Eau Rouge. Hopefully we'll see a replay of that. And Jenson quite sensibly yielding to his teammate. His teammate had the line. There was no point in them tangling in such a fast corner, and they live for another day. I'm not sure how Coulthard is going to handle Ralf Schumacher behind him. Coulthard appears to have a major problem in the middle sector of the race. He's 2 seconds slower than teammate Häkkinen. He's clearly got a balance problem on the car. They've been changing the car for the conditions, and Coulthard not at all hooked up in the middle part of the lap, and I think he's going to have those Williams keeping him close company for a while. Michael Schumacher, let's see what time he does. He's still 1.4 seconds slower as Michael Schumacher than Häkkinen up front. Häkkinen now with a 10.8 second lead.
Yeah, the McLaren engineers and Häkkinen together have done a superb job on getting the balance of the car right. They were working at it all through Friday in the 2 practice periods. Here is Zonta, Ricardo Zonta in the BAR, going over the chicane there at the end of the lap. He won't suffer there, and lap 6 now, and here coming towards us is Michael Schumacher in second place.
Some cars coming in the pit lane, Murray. I think they're going to slicks already. Some cars, and I can see the Ferrari mechanics outside my window ready too. So some cars ready to go to slicks this early.
Yeah, in has come Nick Heidfeld, in has come Marc Genet, in has come Verstappen, and there is Heidfeld coming out. He's changed his tyres on the Prost from the wet weather tyres to the dry ones. So now Heidfeld is out on the track, so's Verstappen, so's Genet. They've lost time in the pits, but they could gain it. And look at Button in the background, pushing his teammate Ralf Schumacher very hard indeed for 4th place.
Ferrari with slicks in the pit lane, Murray. So I would guess they'll be bringing in Michael Schumacher. He's probably calling, yes, bring me in for some tyres. So often here at Spa, you've got this drying situation. Coulthard's still under pressure from those 2 Williams.
Yeah, and it's working because fastest first sector now is Jean Alesi down in 17th position in the Prost. And he's been in and taken on dry weather tyres. This, as I expected, is going to transform the race. He's too far down to do much other than benefit him up to about 10th position. But if Schumacher comes in before Mika Häkkinen, we could see a change, although Häkkinen is now some 11 seconds ahead of the Ferrari.
And Häkkinen did not come in that time around. There's the Schumacher in then. So James is in the pit lane.
Well, Martin, there's been a huge amount of debate about this. First they were, then they weren't, there they were. It's an extraordinary gamble. He's still a few seconds a lap off the sort of pace you need to be on. But I think Michael is throwing the dice, trying to force McLaren into decision. And over his shoulder, in comes his brother. He's obviously seen what Michael is doing, and Ralph is in too. So Jensen's still on wet. Nice stop from Ferrari, but, well, incredible gamble.
Yes, I think it's a smart move. You've got Alesi out there much faster than anybody else. Those that have stopped are faster. Even cars that are significantly slower than the leaders normally are already faster, James. I think McLaren have made a mistake by staying out this extra lap.
We'll soon know, because the fastest lap we've had so far as Frentzen exits the pit lane, followed by Rubens Barrichello. The fastest lap we've had so far in the opening laps in the semi-wet conditions was Mika Häkkinen, 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Now, if Schumacher, yes, Jorna Lacey has just gone round in 2 minutes and 2 seconds, so that's 3 seconds faster in the Prost than a Lacey in the McLaren. Schumacher could really benefit from this.
Yes, McLaren have made a mistake here. They should have had their 2 drivers in at least one of them now last time around, because this means that still one of the McLaren drivers has to do a further lap. They can't, but they're too close together on the track to come in. Now Coulthard is 17, actually might get away with it. 17 seconds behind leader Häkkinen at the moment. They may be able to pick both McLarens on the same lap. I think Coulthard's going to certainly lose some time if he follows teammate in, but they're a lap too late. McLaren have called it, I believe, slightly wrong.
Well, there is Mika Häkkinen well and truly in the lead of the Belgian Grand Prix over the dry tarmac, comparatively dry, into the pit lane. So Mika Häkkinen comes in now. Where is Michael Schumacher? Because Häkkinen had about a 17-second lead at least when he came in, but Michael Schumacher, meantime, is on the fastest lap of the race. He's gone through the first sector in just 55 seconds, and that is really flying.
But remember, Häkkinen had a 10.8-second lead before the pit stop started, so I would imagine he should come out in front of Michael Schumacher, but not by much. The lead will certainly be reduced.
Well, there's just been a flash past the commentary box. I missed which car it was. So there is Häkkinen turning on and rejoining the circuit, followed by his teammate David Coulthard. So Mika Häkkinen is still there. David Coulthard behind him in the pits now. You can see Jenson Button in the Williams, so there are going to be very few cars now left on the wet weather tyres as Mika Salo just misses Jenson Button as the Englishman turns out of the pit lane. We're on lap 8 now out of 44.
Well, the loser here then is Coulthard. He's still on the wet tyres. He should have pitted a lap earlier. He should have called and then they would have given him an advantage rather than a disadvantage. He's now got to pit, so Häkkinen, it takes about 26 or 27 seconds to pit here because it's such a long sector on the 80-kilometre, 50 miles per hour speed limit, and Coulthard's tyres will be shot to pieces by now.
Yeah, and that's the second time in similar circumstances that David Coulthard will have suffered in comparison with Mika Häkkinen, but having a better call. We're on lap 8 now, the Belgian Grand Prix. Still a long, long way to go. But Mika Häkkinen, having made his pit stop, is leading the race. Jenson Button has stopped. Michael Schumacher has stopped. Eddie Irvine, who's up into 5th position, has stopped. Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar. But David Coulthard has not stopped and is therefore going to lose the second place that he has been holding. Meantime, as I said earlier on, Mika Häkkinen is maintaining his iron grip on the Belgian Grand Prix, coming up towards the bus stop again to complete his 8th lap. And Jorna Lacey, the man that came in and made that first tyre stop, has moved up from 17th to 8th position as a result of an inspired call. Rubens Barrichello, who started 10th in the Ferrari, is down in 11th position. And the top 6 at the present moment as Häkkinen goes through into his 9th lap. It's Häkkinen. Coulthard is coming into the pits now. Jenson Button will move up into 2nd position ahead of Michael Schumacher, and here they come.
No, Schumacher's in 2nd. James.
Yeah, how expensive is this going to be? Well, I reckon he's going to lose about 30 to 35 seconds. He could be about 11th at the end of all this. What was interesting was that Ferrari brought Barrichello in right behind Schumacher. Just after I finished talking about it, Rubens came straight in as well. Now, he's still in the hunt, albeit down in 11th. I think DC's lost a big chunk of time here again.
Well, he has indeed, because coming in has cost him dear. Mika Häkkinen is leading. Michael Schumacher is 2nd. The gap is 7 seconds, and it was a heck of a lot more than that earlier on. There's a long way to go in this race.
Yes, well, we saw Häkkinen going into Leclerc. We know that's the first sector of this lap, normally about 31 seconds, and Coulthard was just exiting the pits. So we know, as James predicted, actually, Coulthard is now about a half a minute behind. Disaster for him. Yeah, that puts him down into 11th or 12th position at the present moment, and David Coulthard desperately needed a win here today, as he had last year in Belgium, to keep his World Championship hopes alive. It's beginning to look more and more like, again, a Mika Häkkinen versus Michael Schumacher battle for the World Championship. It
is lap 10 out of 44 in Belgium, and Michael Schumacher is starting marginally to cut into the lead of Mika Häkkinen. He's now, and here is Giancarlo Fisichella, followed by Jos Verstappen in the arrows, bouncing his way across the chicane, and there's some sort of a problem. He moves to one side, and Jos Verstappen goes through and gains the place. He's up into 16th position.
Yes, Fisichella's car there, engine dying on him, and that's put the safety car on standby while we're in a break, but I do not believe they'll have to use it. I think they've managed to clear Fisichella's car out of the way, and the race will continue.
Michael Schumacher, fastest lap of the race. Down comes the gap to Mika Häkkinen, which was some 10 seconds, now is 5.1 seconds. Michael Schumacher has got the bit between his teeth. He knows that he needs desperately to win this race. He's 2 points behind Mika Häkkinen in the World Championship chase, with just 4 races to go after this one. And if he can win this race, he'll be 4 ahead at the end of it.
Coulthard ended up in 9th place now after that disastrous moment when he chose not to come in as early as possible for slicks, and then had to go 1 extra lap while Häkkinen was in for his stop. I think they could have pitted the 2 McLarens together, but it does take time to get the other tyres out, get the other fuel rig ready, but nonetheless it's cost Coulthard a lot of time. He's down in 9th place. So Häkkinen, Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher in 3rd, John Alesi, the first man to go onto slicks, is in 4th, Jenson Button 5th, Jack Villeneuve 6th, Barrichello 7th, Frentzen 8th, Coulthard 9th, Pedro Denit, who has not stopped yet, in 10th place.
And if Michael Schumacher there can't catch Häkkinen, no one else can. This is the man you are watching who won here in 1992, only his 2nd year in Formula 1, and then he was driving a Benetton. He won again in 94, only to be excluded because of a faulty plank underneath the car. He won in 95 for Benetton. He won in 96 for Ferrari and 1997 for Ferrari. And Louise Goodman has news for us.
I'm standing here with Jarno Trulli. Jarno, I guess Jenson Button's not your best friend at the moment.
Well, I'm disappointed. I know it can happen. Unfortunately, it happened between me and him, 2 young drivers. I think it was just a misunderstanding, especially it thought that was enough room to overtake, but in fact there was not, and it just hit me on the back and the spawn, and the engine stalled. I was struggling because my tires went, especially my rear tires, because track was drying up and I was on high fuel level.
Thanks, Jarno. Bad luck.
Well, that's magnanimous of Jarno Trulli, and David Coulthard is pushing now. He's in 9th place behind. There he is in the background as we look at Jean Alesi revelling in the conditions and in a Prost which is actually going well for once. He's in 4th position as Fisichella walks in, having talked to Louise. Mika Häkkinen now is only 4.9 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher.
So Schumacher then, a new fastest lap of a 1:56.1. He's now brought the gap down to 4.9 seconds, and Ralph holding station there in 3rd. So Alesi's early move, early gamble, he really had nothing to lose, did he, running so far down the field? He went to slicks at least a lap earlier than anybody else, and 2 and 3 laps earlier than some of the others, and it paid off immediately. In fact, he would be the trigger for most of those early pit stops. They would have seen immediately his first section time on the wets, on these slicks rather, was already much quicker than anybody else, and that triggered all of the rest of the stops that we've seen.
The most experienced man in Grand Prix racing. This is his 180th Grand Prix. There is the gap between Mika Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher, which is continuing to be marginally reduced lap by lap. It's down to 4.6 seconds. Michael Schumacher has gone fastest again, 1:55.2. The fastest lap last year was 1:54, as near as makes no difference to the nearest 10th of a second. The circuit is still damp in parts. They're staying on the dry bits. It's Williams BMWs in 3rd and 5th places. And if Jean Alesi can get some points for Prost by staying in the race and staying in the points, it will break their duck. They've gone all this season without scoring a single point, and they richly deserve one after all the travail they've had.
So sit back, you're watching a great duel now between 2 double world champions. They're in a league of their own. They're 1.5 to 2 seconds faster than anybody else on the racetrack. They're trading fastest times. Mika Häkkinen comes through with a new fastest lap. Michael Schumacher, just 4 odd seconds down the road, beats that straight away, and Häkkinen sets off then on yet another fastest lap. They're really just head-to-head now.
And if Lacey can keep up the pace, he's going to catch Ralf Schumacher for 3rd place before very much longer. He is lapping some 0.8 of a second. There's Fisichella. It was Jarno Trulli, of course, that Louise Goodman was talking to. And Lacey is lapping some 0.8 of a second faster than Ralf Schumacher, 3rd position, and out.
Häkkinen.
That's Häkkinen, Mika Häkkinen running off the circuit. What has happened? Has it cost him the lead? As the camera cut to the McLaren?
He spun in Stabilo. He spun on his way through Stabilo. He appears to be picking up speed. I think he's just swapped ends on the way into Stabilo. We'll no doubt see a replay. Or did he just pull off the track?
Well, whatever. He was only leading by 4.6 seconds, and we're going to get the answer now.
Schuey's through. Schuey's easily gone through.
Michael Schumacher leads the Belgian Grand Prix. Oh, there he is, and there in the background is Mika Häkkinen. This is a terrific development. Mika Häkkinen was some 4 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. Whatever happened to him, the spin at Stavolo has cost him dearly. It's cost him the lead.
Yes, it was a spin. Car 1 spun and continued at turn 15. That's Stavolo. So Häkkinen, I hope we see a replay as Heidfeld out of the race. I hope we see a replay. I suspect Häkkinen's just caught a white line somewhere, and the cars swapped ends on him. Now he is the pursuer, and Michael Schumacher has a lead of 5.6 seconds to defend.
On lap 14 out of 44, so 1/3 of the race completed. 5 times Belgian Grand Prix winner Michael Schumacher for Ferrari can regain the lead in the World Championship if he can stay where he is, but 2/3 of the race still to go. Ralf Schumacher is now pulling away from Jean Alesi and starting to close on Häkkinen, of course. Now here, have a look at this as we look down on the Ferrari, waiting for the replay to start and rejoin the race, and there is Michael Schumacher. Jenson Button is still there, secure ahead of Jacques Villeneuve, who's again in the points for BAR. And Rubens Barrichello is moving through the field, not as quickly and dramatically as he did in Germany, but he's now up from 10th to 7th. He's 1 place off World Championship points behind Jacques Villeneuve, and he's lapping faster than the BAR. He is 4/10 of a second behind him. There's a colossal battle between the 1997 world champion for Williams, Jacques Villeneuve, and Rubens Barrichello as race leader Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari exits the bus stop and completes his 14th lap. Now 30 laps to go. Where is Mika Häkkinen? Look back, the gap was just about 4. It's now 6.1 seconds. Michael Schumacher has lapped half a second faster.
We're just going to see a replay here. This is Häkkinen having quite a small spin. I think they've been struggling to find it, the Belgian TV crew here. They just caught the end of it. I think he almost certainly caught a white line on the way in, and it was a half a spin, effectively, but it cost him the lead of this Grand Prix.
Lap 16, and this is the battle in the race. As you look at Jacques Villeneuve in 6th position, being challenged by Rubens Barrichello. Behind Barrichello is Frentzen, only just behind him, and David Coulthard, who suffered from that very late pit stop, is down in 9th position. And Louise Goodman has got Giancarlo Fisichella with her.
Giancarlo, reliability let you down yesterday and it's let you down again today.
Yeah, we had a problem, maybe electrical problem, we don't know, we need to check it. I was driving very careful at the beginning of the race. There was possibility to do a good race, but nothing to do.
What are the conditions like out there?
Now it's okay for dry tires. At the beginning it was wet, but after a few laps the circuit getting dry, and with the rain tires it was quite difficult.
Well, there are places to pass at Spa. but Rubens Barrichello is not finding one to get past Jacques Villeneuve and get that 1.46 position in the Drivers' Championship. Just 3 retirements so far. Jarno Trulli, Fisichella we've just heard from, and Nick Heidfeld in the Prost.
A new fastest lap for Michael Schumacher, 55.0. That lap it was 56.0 for Häkkinen. The lead now up to 7.6 seconds. You're watching Barrichello still chasing Villeneuve, and just behind them Frentzen trying to hold off Coulthard. And the rest of the pack, with the exception of Jean Alesi in 4th place, who's driving brilliantly. Now he's got his slicks on and just beginning to catch up Ralf Schumacher. Should be a good scrap there later on. Slow-mo replay of Jenson Button. I think this is just one of those moody things the director here likes to do to show you the wheel movement and the aggression of some of those slow corners. And Barrichello there dropping back a little bit from Villeneuve.
Lap 17, it's fairly static in terms of gaps at the present moment. Michael Schumacher in the lead is easing away from Mika Häkkinen. Ralf Schumacher is steady in 3rd position. Jean Alesi is steady in that determined and well-deserved 4th place as a result of that inspired tyre call. Jenson Button is 10.1 seconds behind Alesi in 5th position. But Jacques Villeneuve, the battle between Jacques Villeneuve and Rubens Barrichello, who are forcing each other on, is enabling them to close on Jenson Button in 5th place. James Allen?
Murray, the $10 million question now is when will they have to stop again? Because of the very early stops for tyres, people only put a very little bit of fuel in. They didn't want to lose too much time and places. But I reckon the front runners started this race with enough fuel to go through to about lap 20 to 21. So with that extra fuel, you've got to figure they're going to come in around about the late 20s. But there is the possibility that people have got different fuel loads on board now, and that could well be decisive in about 10-15 laps time.
And this, of course, is emphasising what a team sport Formula One is. 54.5
now for Michael Schumacher in the lead. He's just finding more and more grip, and a 55.7 for Häkkinen. So pulling that lead out a further 1.3, 1.2 seconds up to 8.8. Michael now just waltzing off into the distance, and Ralf Schumacher second fastest lap that time around in 3rd place.
Yeah, Ralf Schumacher, who has finished second for Jordan here in Belgium. To go back to the point I was making as you watch Michael Schumacher about it being a team race, the team managements will now be plotting the fuel loads that their drivers need to come in for when they stop. And it's going to be just as critical and crucial that they get it right as it was that they called the tyre stops correctly. And Michael Schumacher, now the master of Spa and the rain master, as I was talking on earlier on, is continuing to pull away.
Watch Michael, Murray. He's going onto the wet parts of the track, although he's on dry tyres. He's going, whenever he gets a reasonable chance, across the road to try and cool those slicks down. They're very soft here. They've all gone for the softer type of race tyre. I imagine the cars are running quite a lot of fuel because they stopped so early in the race. And Michael feeling the need just to cool those tyres down. Very, very unusual to see a driver on slick tyres going over onto the damp parts of the circuit. But it's paying off. He's on yet another blistering lap.
Yeah, his 139th Grand Prix. This is experience. He scored more World Championship points than any other current driver. 634 points at the present moment, second only to the great Alain Prost, who'd scored nearly 800 when he retired. And Michael Schumacher continues now, exits the lap. This is the end of his 18th lap. The gap of 8.8 seconds over Mika Häkkinen is sure to have been increased as a result of that fastest lap that he has just had. In fact, it's increased by over a full second. It's nearly 10 seconds now.
And Häkkinen's picked his pace up, but Michael on a 54.2. Let's see if he feels the need again down the straight, this time to wander over to the right-hand side. Yes, he does look, and that's paying off. That's gained Michael Schumacher 4 or 5 seconds on his lead. He's so smart, he's thinking all the time. He needs less of his capacity to drive the car, leaves plenty spare to think what's going on around him and how he can maximise everything that's available to him. And I'm sure the McLaren team must be on the radio to Häkkinen to tell him to do the same thing.
There's that stop that James Allen was talking about. Jean Alesi comes in from 4th position for his fuel stop as opposed to the tyre stop which he made earlier on in the race. Now, he may have lost the place to Jenson Button. I can't tell you at the moment because we're watching the McLaren, as is Ron Dennis, the McLaren team boss there. The McLaren of Mika Häkkinen in second place in Belgium. And Häkkinen has already had 5 second places this year, but he needs a victory here, just as Michael Schumacher does, to do something about the World Championship and riveting it for one or other of them. Schumacher, lap 19, Häkkinen, lap 19, gap nearly 10 seconds. Ralf Schumacher is holding pace very well indeed in the Williams BMW. He's only losing about 0.3 of a second a lap. He's under 10, he's 19 seconds behind his brother, who is in the lead.
Yes, if you look at the form book of the last 10 Grand Prix, so that's 20 starts for the McLaren team, they've had 20 finishes. Michael, of course, had a string of non-finishes, mostly down to accidents, it has to be said, rather than mechanical problems, although the engine did fail on him at the French Grand Prix. So you'd have to say that McLaren have the upper hand in the reliability stakes, but right now, Michael easily has the upper hand in speed, although Mika Häkkinen now having to respond to that extra push from Michael Schumacher, but still losing a further 0.3 of a second last time around.
Jenson Button pushing to try to get that position from Jean Alesi out of the bus stop. Is he going to be coming in on this lap? No, indeed he is not. The Prost is the only car that's come in for its first fuel stop as opposed to tyre stop so far. Jenson Button exits last source, very tight indeed compared to a lot of the drivers. And here is Michael Schumacher bumping his way across the chicane at the bus stop. And hello, this is Eddie Irvine and Mika Salo battling for 12th position. Irvine in the Jaguar, Salo getting through on the inside. Is he to take that 12th position? His car's been beautifully set up for the race. He was 6th fastest in the warm-up this morning. And here again are Jacques Villeneuve and Rubens Barrichello. Still now battling, but now for 5th place. It was 6th position, and the race order at the present moment: Schumacher, Häkkinen, Ralf Schumacher 3rd, Jenson Button is 4th, but as a result of that stop by Jean Alesi, which has dropped into 10th position, Jacques Villeneuve is 5th. You're looking at Rubens Barrichello, who is 6th. Frentzen is 7th ahead of David Coulthard 8th, 9th and 10th Deniz and Alesi. But Alesi should come up again now, having made his fuel stop, when the others have to start coming in.
So Deniz has not stopped at all. He was the only driver brave enough to start the race on slicks. That's why he fell to the back of the field early on, but he got the benefit later on. So Deniz up into 9th place in the Sauber, not having stopped for tyres or fuel at this point of the race.
And he is lapping about 2 seconds a lap slower than the flying Michael Schumacher in the lead in Belgium on lap 21, coming up to half distance, which is lap 22, as the bus stop they're coming up to, they being Villeneuve and Barrichello. And just imagine the G-forces of the tyre loadings there.
Yes, it's very difficult to follow somebody through Blanchimont 195. And Barrichello taking a pit stop. Barrichello clearly thinks his best way past Villeneuve is to come in early and find some clear air. But to follow somebody else through Blanchimont, the problem is you can't see the track. You're turning in at 190 miles an hour, and you've really got to have a bit of blind faith and follow the other driver, and you cannot pick up your reference points. But Barrichello found his reference points at his pit stop, and it appears to all be going well. The refueling rig is off already, and a great stop there by Ferrari. That could just launch Barrichello past Villeneuve when he has to stop, but Barrichello needs to maximise this outlap now. Hope he doesn't get too much traffic. Looks like he's already got a Jaguar in front of him. Now Barrichello must absolutely nail it from the first corner.
Yeah, well, he knows the score. 4th in the World Championship. He's got a victory behind him. You probably noticed those copper earthing strips being flattened by the car when he came in to get rid of any static in the Ferrari safely. So Rubens Barrichello on what is an increasingly dry track now. The fastest lap we've had so far, Michael Schumacher on lap 18, 1 minute 54.2, and that is about 0.3 of a second slower than Mika Häkkinen's fastest lap last year, when the conditions, of course, were very much better. And the gap between between Schumacher and Häkkinen is now 10 seconds as you watch David Coulthard battling Heinz-Harald Frenzen's Jordan for the last World Championship point at the moment, 6th place.
Yes, Coulthard needs to clear Frentzen. He's lapping some 1.5 seconds slower than Häkkinen. And we know the pair of them have got similar pace around this racetrack. But Coulthard can't get anywhere in the turbulent air following the Jordan. If he's going to have any chance of some sensible points today, he needs to clear this Jordan very quickly. His World Championship chances are beginning to slip away this afternoon. This is a bad afternoon for David Coulthard in the year 2000.
Yeah, you have to say, Martin, he's had some pretty rough luck this season, one way and another. He lost those 6 World Championship points in Brazil for a car irregularity, which was no fault of his after he'd finished second.
Yes, but I'll be wondering why he didn't demand to come in earlier for slick tyres. It looked like it was ready for slicks. If I can see it up here, I'm sure they can feel it and see it down there. It looked like slicks. He should have called, should have demanded, unless he was told he couldn't come in, of course.
Well, Pedro Diniz has finally made that stop from 9th position. The last man to make his first stop comes in from 9th place in the Sauber. Incidentally, there's a strong rumour going round here that Johnny Herbert, who we thought was going to race in America next year, is in fact again going to rejoin the Sauber team next season. I emphasise, as ever, it's a rumour.
I think that's got to the bottom of that a little bit. That's a bit, something having a laugh, starting a rumour. I think it came not very far away from Johnny, actually, seeing how fast it would come back to you and how far round it would go on its way.
Gone to a lot of people now, then.
Never. About 40 million. Schumacher
in. James.
A little bit earlier than we expected, but that's because we've been doing a bit of research. We found the fuel nozzle when he came in first time round was only on for 2 seconds, which was only 24 kilos of fuel. So in comes Michael Schumacher. Now the target here is to get back out again ahead of Jenson Button. That's what Ferrari are trying to do, and certainly ahead of Jacques Villeneuve. A quick word also on Rubens Barrichello's stop. That was a switch, guys. He's now on a 3-stop strategy. Keep an eye out for it.
Right, well, the seconds are ticking and 11.1 of them go as Michael Schumacher exits the pit lane. He was leading Mika Häkkinen by 5 seconds, just over 5 seconds when he came in. Now, where is Jenson Button? Well, there is Ralf Schumacher. So it looks as though the Ferrari objective has been achieved. The gap between Ralf Schumacher, who's 3rd, and Jenson Button, who's 4th, was 17 seconds. And now the Ferrari is sandwiched between the 2 Williams, and Michael Schumacher has made his stop.
Now, Häkkinen's been told to push. He's just done the fastest first section of any lap this afternoon by some margin indeed. So Häkkinen, the team will have been on the radio. You must maximise these next few laps because Schumacher stopped very early, as James pointed out. I would have thought there's just enough fuel gone in that car. James will be calculating it anyway to get him to the end of the Grand Prix. Häkkinen now on a push.
Lap 24, 20 laps to go in Belgium. You're looking at Ralf Schumacher, who is currently in 2nd position in the Williams BMW behind Mika Häkkinen as a result of his brother Michael having made that early stop in the Ferrari from the lead. Michael Schumacher is in 3rd place ahead of Jenson Button, who has only stopped once in the Williams BMW. He's in 4th place. The 2 Williams BMWs are 2nd and 4th at the moment. That's the best they have been this season. Jacques Villeneuve is 5th, pursued by Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and David Coulthard, who has only stopped once, is down in 7th place ahead of Jean Alesi, who has stopped twice. There's still going to be changes in this Belgian Grand Prix as you look now at the Jordan and the McLaren turning into the bus stop, accelerating along that little short straight, out again to complete the lap. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Jordan is 6th, David Coulthard behind him, 7th position.
Villeneuve in the pits. Coulthard needs to clear that Jordan, otherwise his afternoon's wreck. This is Villeneuve, 50 miles an hour limit. He's at the far end of the pit lane. BAR right down at the end. At least he's got an easy escape route then, straight out onto the racetrack. Well, there's a 180-degree right-hander immediately after he gets underway and right out onto the racetrack. So Villeneuve was beginning to catch Jenson Button, but by nowhere near enough speed, and still Coulthard can do nothing about Frenson's Jordan.
And he's seen a lot at very close quarters of the car in front of him at various races this year, down out of the top 6. Well, he's in it at the present moment. He is in 6th position on a potential 1 World Championship point. But Jacques Villeneuve has been in now, and that's as a result of the BAR coming into the pits that Coulthard has improved his position. And Frenson bumps over the sore teeth of the chicane there. And we're on lap 25 now, out of 44. And I've got a feeling that there is still a lot of drama left in this race.
So Häkkinen is 14.2 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher at this stage of the race. We think Schumacher's fueled to the end of the race, so Häkkinen needs to be significantly further down the road. Ralf Schumacher's pitting on this lap, I'm just seeing on the computer. So Ralf in, that'll put Michael back up to 2nd place. And if Michael can peg Häkkinen's pace in this sector of the race, he's certainly going to end up in the lead later on.
Yeah, their comparative lap times at the moment, as you look at Ralf Schumacher, not M. Schumacher in the Ferrari, thank you, change the caption. Ralf Schumacher exits the pit lane, watch the fuel flap goes down when there it goes. And here is the man who was leading the race when he came in for his pit stop, Michael Schumacher. He's in 2nd position at the present moment, and Mika Häkkinen staying out. This is the 26th lap. The fact that they had to come in early to change from wet weather tyres to dry weather tyres and take on a bit of fuel at the same time has changed strategies dramatically. That when we were expecting people to come in is not necessarily when they are going to be coming in.
Michael Schumacher, we saw down the main back straight up towards Les Combes, really on the far right-hand side of the circuit, trying to cool his slicks. Once again, he's got quite a heavy fuel load in that car now. The risk out there is he could pick up a puncture. You get a lot of debris and rubbish out there. It won't affect his grip into the next corner. He's moving back early enough to clean the tyres back up, but you do put a lot of extra risk into getting a puncture from little pieces of carbon fibre or whatever. Remembering, of course, that much of that part of the racetrack is a normal main road the rest of the year round.
Looking at the Constructors' World Championship at the present moment, with David Coulthard still to make his 2nd stop, both the McLarens are well and truly in the points. And in the Constructors' Championship, there is only 1 point between McLaren, who is leading, and Ferrari, who is 2nd. But at the present moment, only one of the Ferraris, the one that you're looking at, Michael Schumacher, is in the points, because Rubens Barrichello is still down out of the points in 8th position.
Michael losing about 0.3 of a second per lap to Mika now. That's because he took on about 10 seconds worth of fuel. We saw it for ourselves. So Michael now with quite a heavy car. Every 10 kilos of fuel around here costs you half a second per lap in time, as Jenson Button comes in for his 2nd stop of the afternoon from 3rd position. He will now fall back behind teammate Ralf Schumacher and resume, I would imagine, in 4th. A reasonable stop again there for Jenson, and hopefully he won't have too much traffic when he moves on to the racetrack. Nothing coming down the pit straight. I think Jenson, and who was that?
Well, it's a Ferrari going through there in the background, but now we're looking again at this continued battle all the way around the circuit between Frenson and Coulthard, 5th and 6th, Jordan and McLaren. Now the Mugen Honda engine of the Jordan, which is going to have a full works Honda engine next year, has not had all that much development this year, so Frenson is doing extremely well to stay ahead of the very powerful Mercedes-Benz powered McLaren of David Coulthard.
Yes, and that's Jenson at the moment we think is down in 8th place actually, because the other runners haven't stopped yet, and that was Barrichello ahead of him, who has stopped twice. So Barrichello's had quite a run since he made that early stop for his 2nd set of tyres, and I think, and Häkkinen is in the pits too, I can see. Mika Häkkinen from the lead of the race into the pit lane. It's not on our screens yet. I'm sure they'll pick it up as soon as they move away from this scrap between Frenson, and there you see it, Häkkinen coming in for his 2nd stop.
Following the arrows in now, the gap was 14.6 seconds. Michael Schumacher is sure to be taking the lead unless he encounters a problem. And out, that's a very good stop. 8.8 seconds for Mika Häkkinen now. I'm looking for the flag. There's the car going past. I just saw the top of it over the pit wall. Where is the Ferrari?
Now he's leading.
That's one of the arrows that's gone through. So where is Michael Schumacher? Well, there is Mika Häkkinen coming down to Eau Rouge.
I saw the top of Schumacher's car.
Yeah, there he is.
Yes, there he is. Going underneath the wall there, but it was difficult to pick up how far he'd got before Häkkinen, in a different shot, came out of the pit lane. And as we thought, Michael Schumacher, who was 14.6 seconds behind before Häkkinen stopped, takes much longer than 14.6 seconds because of the long pit lane and the slow speed limit. And now Michael Schumacher picks up the lead once again, and we think he's fueled to the end.
And he's coming up behind Alexander Wurtz's blue Benetton, which he goes through on the inside to lap, and Mazzucane's yellow Minardi with the red wishbones. He's going to lap the Argentine driver now. So he's lapped Verstappen, he's lapped Wurz, he's lapped Mazzucane. The next target will be Marc Genet in the second Minardi. And the top 10 on lap 28 out of 44 are now Michael Schumacher, Mika Häkkinen, Ralf Schumacher, Hans-Harald Frentzen. 5th is Coulthard, 6th is Alesi. Alesi is back in the points. Keep your fingers crossed for Alesi and Prost, they deserve it. Rubens Barrichello is 7th, Button is 8th, but will move up. Johnny Herbert in the Jaguar is 9th. Jacques Villeneuve is 10th in the BAR.
So that was the crucial section of the race there for Michael Schumacher. While he had the much heavier fuel load I was explaining to you, he was still able to match Mika Häkkinen's times. Häkkinen could not stretch that lead with low fuel to be more than a pit stop ahead of Michael, and that really could well have cost Mika the race. Michael, a crucial stage of the race, and he made it work.
Well, if Michael Schumacher wins this race, and I'm certainly not going to say he is going to win it, it'll be his 6th victory of the year. He's been trying so hard ever since he joined Ferrari in '96. And in come Frentzen and Coulthard together.
Yes, so obviously McLaren called Coulthard in, and Jordan have very sensibly responded immediately to that. These two running line astern, and David Coulthard will be absolutely destroyed to see Frentzen coming in the pit lane ahead of him. Can they turn him around quicker than the Jordan? It's a reasonable stop, but yes, I think he's going to pass him. Yeah. Yep. Lucky there for Coulthard. The McLaren boys turned him around quicker than the Jordan boys, got Frentzen away, and that's a crucial thing, a crucial move there for Coulthard. And now he needs to keep Johnny Herbert's Jaguar behind him as he builds up tyre temperature and speed into Eau Rouge.
So, watch for the Jaguar. There it is. Yep. And he has succeeded in doing so, and a classic indication of how you can change positions with a good pit stop. That's exactly what happened. David Coulthard had been sitting behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen's Jordan gearbox for lap after lap after lap, not able to do anything about getting past because disturbed aerodynamics and all the other problems that you have with following a car closely in front. But now he is ahead.
Yes, and Frentzen's also ahead of Villeneuve, so Villeneuve's lost out quite badly. We didn't see, his stop seemed okay, actually we did see it. Remember, he was right at the end of the pit lane, but for whatever reason, Villeneuve's had a bad run since that pit stop and fallen down the field. So Coulthard now showing, well, the computer hasn't sorted itself out yet from those pit stops.
No, so I'm just going to wait until it does so. So easy to get it wrong when the positions are changing and we're waiting for things to be updated. However, no doubt at all about the fact that on the 2/3 distance lap, lap 30 out of 44, Michael Schumacher's Ferrari, which you are looking at now, is leading Mika Häkkinen's McLaren by some 5 seconds.
There's Michael over on the what little bit of damp track is left now, and significantly on the last lap, Häkkinen took 0.8 of a second out of Micah's lead. Rubens Barrichello sets a new fastest lap of the race on a 54.0.
Mika Häkkinen is driving an inspired race. He's got the gap between himself and Michael Schumacher down to under 4 seconds. Now, very often when you change from one set of tyres to another, things can get better or things can get worse. That could have happened both to Michael Schumacher and to Mika Häkkinen the wrong way as far as Schumacher is concerned. They could have got worse for him and better for Häkkinen. But whatever the reason, the gap is coming down, and Rubens Barrichello in the second Ferrari is now in 4th place, catching Ralf Schumacher, who is 3rd. Alesi is 5th and Jenson Button is 6th.
Yes, remember, we think that Barrichello's on a 3-stop strategy, therefore he will have the faster car, but at 1:53.8 for a new fastest lap for Barrichello. And now Häkkinen is now down to 3.1 seconds, an inspired section of the race. Remember, he was leading early on. He spun off at Stavolo, lost the lead, seemed to be a bit cautious. Michael Schumacher clearly had a lot more pace, but on this set of tyres, as you say, Marion, at this stage of the race, it's Häkkinen now. Look at the total commitment he had coming over the top of Radion as he pursues Michael Schumacher. Now it's flip-flopped the other way, and he's become the pursuer yet again.
It's a moot point. Some people will say that Michael Schumacher is very much the best driver of these days. Others will say Mika Häkkinen, and there's no doubt at all about the fact that they are the 2 best drivers, closely pursued by David Coulthard, and here they are in the front. And we've got news from Louise Goodman.
Yeah, we're standing in the Jordan garage watching that pit stop. They're absolutely distraught about what went on. They were so sharp to react to McLaren coming in, straight on the case. There was a slight problem with one of the rear wheels, but in fact that was all sorted out by the time that the fuel man had come off. The main problem was that Heinz-Harald Frentzen overshot his mark. That lost vital time, and it's also lost him a position in the race. Yeah, that does. When the mechanics have to move up and the heavy fuel rig has to be adjusted, the hose, which is extremely heavy and supported by 2 men, has to be lumbered up so that they can line it up with the fuel filler, and it does cost time. But now you're watching what's going to be a classic confrontation between the 2 top men with about 12 laps still to go. That's about 50 miles still to go, and Mika Häkkinen is eating into Michael Schumacher's lead. I've said this many times before, I'll say it again, catching is one thing, passing is another. But my goodness, catching is certainly what Mika Häkkinen is doing. On the previous lap, the gap, lap 31, was 3.1 seconds. Over the line goes Michael Schumacher. Over the line goes Mika Häkkinen. Down comes the gap by half a second to 2.4 seconds.
Yes, so Häkkinen got a good car underneath him. So is Coulthard now finally finding some pace back there in 6th place. So Coulthard, having cleared the Jordan, now can find some pace. He's about 4 seconds behind Jenson Button as they're scrapping over. They will be scrapping over 5th place. Barrichello in 4th, we think, has got to stop again. Michael Schumacher 1st, Häkkinen 2nd, Ralf Schumacher 3rd. I don't believe either of those 3 will have to stop as Eddie Irvine passes there, and De La Rosa, and looks like De La Rosa has some kind of problem.
Yeah. Eddie Irvine is in 13th position, his teammate. Here are the top 10. Michael Schumacher, lap 32, leads Mika Häkkinen by the gap. You can see it's about 2.5 seconds. Ralf Schumacher is 22 seconds behind the leader. Rubens Barrichello is 27 seconds behind the leader, but has got to stop again. Jenson Button is 12 seconds behind Barrichello, so could regain that 4th position. He started 3rd on the grid. In 6th position is David Coulthard, ahead of Frentzen, who is 7th. Jacques Villeneuve in 8th place. 9th is Alesi. 10th is Salo. And it rather looks at the present moment as though Jean Alesi is not going to achieve those much-desired first ever points for the Prost team this season. Look at Mika Häkkinen, really hammering it, really giving the McLaren a hard time. And he can see his quarry, Michael Schumacher, as they come round the tremendously fast corner at Blanchimont at some 190 miles an hour, break down for the bus stop, which they take at an approach speed of about 80 miles an hour, and out of it now. The gaps come down from 3.1 to 2.4. Over the line they go, and this time it's 2.2, 2/10 of a second gained by Mika Häkkinen. They exit La Source. They drop down towards Eau Rouge. Through that daunting series of bends, the swinging uphill section, and then bare left at Radion up towards Les Combes. The battle is on.
Barrichello out of the race, by the looks of it. Barrichello with some kind of problem, coasting now into the pit lane. He may just be able to freewheel all the way down to his pit.
Bad news for Ferrari, good news for Williams and BMW and Jenson Button, because definitely up into 4th place goes Jenson Button, to 5th goes David Coulthard, to 6th goes Heinz-Harald Frentzen, hopefully to get a point for Jordan, and Rubens Barrichello draws to a standstill, very definitely out of the race, his 3rd retirement of the year.
Yes, and he's this side, he's the track side of the white line that crosses the circuit, so the mechanics cannot go to that car. He needs the marshals to push him into the zone, past the white line that crosses the beginning of the pit lane. He's saying, push me, push me. There's his mechanics ready for him, look. But the mechanics cannot touch that car outside of the white line. They will be in serious problems, in my understanding of the rule. James?
Jim, I think he possibly might have run out of fuel, you know, because he did push it very, very hard. There was quite an interesting run. They're certainly all ready for him. He's reported no particular problems with the car, as far as I can tell. And that's the dilemma for Ferrari. They want the marshals to bring the car in, but who knows?
And sadly, Jean Alesi is out of the race in the Prost. He was 4th at one time. His teammate Nick Heidfeld has already retired long ago, one of the earliest retirements. And yet again, poor Jean is out of the race. Yet again, no points for Prost. Lap 34.
They'll have to retire that car, is my understanding of the rules. And where they're standing with Jean Alesi's car, I wouldn't stand there for all the tea in China. Thank you very much. They've got to clear that car out of the way. The cars are coming in there at 200 miles an hour, and it's absolutely in the line of fire if there's any kind of problems. And this is the scrap of the race now. Our two Brits, Coulthard 2.3 seconds behind Jenson Button, lapping about 1.2 faster per lap, and Hakkinen now down to just 1.6 behind Schumacher, who still feels the need to cool the tyres on that Ferrari. And Hakkinen will take a lot of pleasure out of that, because he's faster and he clearly doesn't need to do the same thing.
And it's my estimation that if things stay as they are, and I don't think they are going to stay as they are, McLaren and Ferrari will be tying for the lead in the Constructors' Championship at the end of this race. And that is 10 laps away. This is lap 35 out of 44, and you're watching Rubens Barrichello sitting gloomily in the Ferrari while they try to bring it back to life.
Yeah, they've got to build some fuel pressure if indeed it was out of fuel. They've got to. I think they have to retire that car anyway. It's getting out. I do not believe they can recover it from beyond the white line and then restart the race. So Barrichello quite clearly retiring, and I think they had to do that anyway. Hakkinen has done the fastest first section of anybody in the race so far, taking 0.4 of a second out of Michael Schumacher in the first 30 seconds of this very lap that you're watching now. What has Michael Schumacher done in the middle? He's taken half a second back again.
Yeah, and remember, Hakkinen is leading the World Championship by 2 points from Michael Schumacher. 10 points for victory, 6 points for second place. If Hakkinen can get ahead of Michael Schumacher, it's going to be a mighty bonus for him in this year's World Championship. Nobody has won the Drivers' World Championship 3 years in succession since the great Juan Manuel Fangio did so driving a Maserati in 1957. Mika Hakkinen won in 99, he won in 98, he's leading in the year 2000. This is a terrific scrap. And Jean Alesi walking in. Ralf Schumacher still holds on. We haven't seen much of Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW, but he's still there, and he's 25 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. Seven laps to go, and look at this. Mika Hakkinen is maintaining the pressure. He has caught Michael Schumacher.
Yes, and just down the road, Coulthard had a little go at getting past Button into La Source. There's 2.10s in it. Coulthard trying down the outside. His car has been much stronger under braking, and Coulthard takes that position. So up into 4th place for Coulthard. Button down to 5th. We've been watching the scrap through the last 5-6 laps, and David Coulthard had a much better kind of braking. I think Button's rear tyres are going away too, struggling to get the power down, but the two leaders now really just about slugging it out and keeping that gap to 1 second.
7 laps to go, 7 laps of 4.3 miles. And And this is going to decide whether Mika Häkkinen extends his lead in the World Championship or Michael Schumacher retakes the lead in the World Championship that he had right up to and including the German Grand Prix, which was race 11 out of 17 this year. An absolutely magnificent scrap. Ralf Schumacher, unseen by us for quite a long time, has been in third position for lap after lap after lap in the Williams BMW and is continuing to maintain it. He was third in Australia, the first race of the year. It looks as though Williams and BMW are going to have another podium.
Well, Ferrari have confirmed that Barrichello ran out of fuel as Michael's still cooling his tyres at this stage of the race. He's giving a lot away there to Häkkinen, showing him that, and then having to come back online and brake very, very late into Leclerc. It's 205 miles an hour, down to about 65 or 70 miles an hour through there. Michael needing a lot of grip, but choosing to cool those tyres. We know from the previous few races that the McLaren is much lighter on its tyres than the Ferrari, and you see it there easily for yourself as Michael Schumacher has to keep cooling them down, but it's at the moment able to maintain what is now down to 0.8 of a second lead. And Coulthard pulling away now from Button. His next target is Ralf Schumacher down the road by 14 seconds. So Coulthard's got his work cut out to get on the podium this afternoon for what would be his 40th podium, but he needs to be on the top of that podium to keep his World Championship chances very much alive. And at the moment, we've just got this duel up the front between Michael Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen. Let me take you through the race. It started under the safety car. Some drivers feeling it was too dangerous, and Michael Schumacher moving through quite quickly after that. Häkkinen, though, was maintaining a lead and spun off at Stavelot, giving this lead to Michael Schumacher. Midway through the race, Schumacher easily had the pace, and then since the second stop, Häkkinen clearly has had the faster car, and this is the net result. Over the line now, what is the gap? We can see it for ourselves, but it's 0.7 on the stopwatch.
5 laps to go, and neither of them, of course, can afford to come in again. There's no reason why they should do. They've had their 2 stops that were planned. Michael Schumacher would appear to have overheating tyres in comparison with Mika Häkkinen, and it is coming up to Les Combes that time after time he's dodged into the wet patch to try and cool those tyres down a bit. Let's see whether he does it again. This is coming up to the wetter patch and he's into it and moves across to take the line for the corner. Still in the lead on the 39th lap.
While you were describing that, Murray, I'm looking at the computer, and Häkkinen is a full 10 kilometres an hour faster down that back straight. If he gets anywhere near Michael Schumacher, I think he'll be able to drift past him and pick up a toe for an extra speed too, just like Coulthard was able to do with Jenson Button. So Häkkinen has got the straight line speed and the car under braking to pass Michael Schumacher if he can get close enough.
Mika Häkkinen looks down into the cockpit there, and his wife is tense. Everybody is tense because, as I said earlier on, this is the battle for the World Championship. For Mika Häkkinen to maintain the lead he's got now, to extend it and go on to make it 3 World Championships in a row. For Michael Schumacher, who joined Ferrari in 1996, vowing to get them back to the top. Well, they're back at the top in terms of the Constructors' Championship, which they won last year after Michael Schumacher had made that magnificent return at Malaysia after breaking his leg at Silverstone. But they have yet to win a Drivers' World. And now they're coming up to the Minardi. If the Minardi gets in the way, it could affect the lead, and the Minardi is that of Marc Genet, who is down in 14th place and has already been lapped once. Down to La Source, the slowest corner on the circuit, about 35 miles an hour. So the Minardi's been lapped, the Ferrari's bearing down on them. In front of the Minardi of Marc Genet is Alexander Wurtz's Benetton down in 13th position. Over Radion, now it's here that Mika Häkkinen can close up. I don't think he's close enough to stop.
He is close enough, Murray. He has got the slipstream. We know he's got 10 kilometres an hour extra, but Michael Schumacher very firmly closing the door, leaving Häkkinen nowhere to go at all. Häkkinen had the speed, he didn't have anywhere to use it.
And that reminds me of Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher. Damon Hill in the Williams, Michael Schumacher in the Benetton in 1996. 1994 at exactly the same place where Damon Hill and Michael actually banged wheels at Les Combes in their tremendous, ferocious fight for leadership in the Belgian Grand Prix, which is being repeated here again. Lap 40. We've got laps 41, 2, 3 and 4 to go at the end of this one. And I have to say, it's looking as though Mika Häkkinen can take that lead and increase his lead in the championship. They're coming up to Voort now, who is lapping some 2 seconds a lap slower than they are. They've both got much more powerful and better handling cars. They'll both pass him, but will it affect the lead?
Well, Michael there, pretty firm. I think it was legitimate. Here we're going to see it again. Michael starts to move to the middle of the road. He knows that Mika's got a run on him. He knows he's got better straight line speed. And Häkkinen, look, with absolutely nowhere to go. And Michael moving back across the track. Theoretically, you're not supposed to do that, but he was moving back to take the line through the corner. Very close call, but I think a legitimate move there from Michael Schumacher.
And I think we're going to see it again, because they're coming through to complete the lap now. That is 40 laps completed, just 4 laps left to go.
Now, Häkkinen's best chance is if Schumacher has to follow Zonta closely through Eau Rouge, and I don't think that's going to happen, particularly this time around. I think they're going to pass Zonta on another part of the racetrack, because that's what gives Häkkinen his best shot. Schumacher in dirty air, and then Häkkinen with the extra straight line speed. And once again, look, Michael's having to defend, and Mika, and the back marker's in the way. Can he do it? Yes, he's done it. A brilliant move there, either side of Zonta, and Häkkinen brilliantly takes the lead of the Belgian Grand Prix.
And you can see the delight in the McLaren garage, because that could well have decided the race. A superb, gritty, determined, forceful move from Mika Häkkinen takes the lead in the McLaren Mercedes, and he is on lap 41, 3 laps to go at the end of this one, and he's obviously got superior performance. I would expect him now to pull away, particularly on that approach up to Les Combes out of Eau Rouge.
So Zonta really did come into play there. Michael tried to defend the line and then chose to go the long way around Zonta, and Häkkinen just kept going. Here we see from the front view, the camera up at Les Combes, Michael defending the track, making his Ferrari as wide as he can. He then went round the outside of Zonta, and Häkkinen said, thank you very much, I'll have a piece of that side of the racetrack then this time around, and really took Michael by surprise. And can you imagine how much surprise Zonta had?
Yeah, and remember, they were doing it at an approach speed of some 205 miles an hour. These men are supermen, and you're getting the living proof of it before your very eyes now. Coming through to complete lap 41 out of 44, 3 laps to go, crossing the line, the positions reversed, and the time gap between them 1.4 seconds. It's looking like a bad call for Michael Schumacher.
Michael Schumacher, of course, came in quite early, so he's now done 23 or 24 laps. Well, certainly over 20 laps on this set of tyres, and it's quite clear to see he's beginning to struggle. Coulthard took 5 seconds out of Ralf Schumacher. Schumacher in third, Coulthard in fourth last time around. Don't know what kind of problems Ralf had, with that gap now down to just 8.2 seconds for the final place on the podium.
Yeah, and it could be a superb race for McLaren, not just from the point of view of the Drivers' Championship, but the Constructors' Championship, particularly if David Coulthard can continue to close that gap and get past Ralf Schumacher. Here is the battle. This is Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW out of Radion, climbing up to Les Combes. David Coulthard not in sight as you see the heat haze billowing up around the Williams, and the gap is still some 8 seconds. So David Coulthard has made no ground. Well, he's made 0.2 of a second, actually. But it looks as though Ralf Schumacher is in good shape for third position, in which case it would be Schumachers, the brothers, the best brothers that there have ever been in Formula One, in second and third places. Jenson Button, by the way, still very much in the top 6, in 5th position, with David Coulthard in 4th place. Frentzen on a 1 single point for the Jordan team in 6th place. Jacques Villeneuve is in 7th place. Johnny Herbert in the Jaguar is running 8th, 2 places ahead of Eddie Irvine. So it looks as though both the Jaguars are going to be in the top 10, sandwiching Mika Salo, the Sauber driver, who's going to Toyota next year.
Yes, still no idea of why Ralph lost 5 seconds in one lap. Maybe a little trip across the gravel somewhere, or a major problem with the back marker. Now, Häkkinen 1.7 seconds ahead, and Michael appears to have dropped his pace somewhat into the 55s. And I think he has no ammunition left to take a fight once again to Mika Häkkinen.
Yeah, it looks as though he has reluctantly, very reluctantly settled for second. But Michael Schumacher is ever the realist after the race has finished. When he's in the interview room, I have no doubt that he will be saying something like, I realised Mika Häkkinen had got the superior performance. I tried my very best to keep him back. It was a superb move to get past Zonta the way he did on the inside when I had to go around the outside. And with my tyres in the state that they were in, and I'm guessing this, I just decided that 6 points was better than going off and getting none, because the championship is still going to be very, very much on. Mika Häkkinen is going to be on 74 World Championship points. Michael Schumacher is going to be on 68 World Championship points. 6 points between them. We've still got the Italian, American, Japanese and Malaysian Grand Prix to go. But I have to say that it's looking better and better for McLaren all the time. They've got the car running beautifully. Mika Häkkinen is right on form. David Coulthard, by the way, is still in 4th position, 7.7 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher, as race leader Mika Häkkinen closes up on the arrows in front of him to lap him.
Yes, the problem Ferrari have got, I mean, this has been a superb performance by Michael Schumacher. He is definitely the man in the tricky conditions. But the problem is, had this been a totally dry race, you have to say, those McLarens would have been a long, long, long way down the road. They had much superior speed in the totally dry conditions, and only the tricky conditions have enabled Michael to put up this kind of performance, in my view.
Well, the arrows moved over, lets him through, saw the McLaren approaching in the mirrors, good manners, good bit of Formula One driving. And now Mika Häkkinen is out on his own on the last lap of the 2000 Belgian Grand Prix. The blue flag's waving, but the man has already taken action. And Michael Schumacher has still got to get past. Well, Mika Häkkinen has driven a magnificent race. He's been on top in Belgium for the whole time. He was quickest in qualifying. He was quickest this morning. He's going to end up winning the race and getting those 10 World Championship points, and that will be his 4th win of the year.
So the key point then was Michael Schumacher stopping early for his second stop, having a long run then to the end of the race. Those tyres giving up on him. He knew that from very early stages. He was already trying to cool them down despite being slick tyres on a slick racetrack, finding the damp patches, because he really knew he was going to struggle with tyre degradation later on in that stint. Häkkinen pitting some laps later, and Michael just could not do enough to fend off a flying Finn, who desperately seems to want that 3rd consecutive World Championship.
And Michael is pushing right to the end, faster in the 1st sector than Mika Häkkinen, faster in the 2nd sector by half a second than Mika Häkkinen. But the Finn has got it in the bag unless something dreadful happens in the closing few hundred yards of the race, as Michael Schumacher comes right up to the rear wing almost of the McLaren Mercedes. Mika Häkkinen exits the bus stop and for the first time in his career wins the Belgian Grand Prix by 1.1 seconds from Michael Schumacher. But it might just as well have been 1.1 hours from Michael Schumacher, because now Mika Häkkinen has stretched his World Championship lead as we see the superb Ralf Schumacher in this Williams BMW, which has gone so well for the whole of this year's season. The first time that BMW have returned and joined the Williams team, and he gets 4 World Championship points and another podium position to match that he got in Australia at the beginning of the year. And in 4th place, David Coulthard comes through to get 3 World Championship points for McLaren, so that's 13 points for McLaren, only 6 points for Ferrari. McLaren have stretched their lead dramatically in the Constructors' Championship.
Yes, Coulthard then, a bad call early on for whatever reason. He should have been in the pits at least 2 laps earlier for slicks, and possibly even 3. 3 would have been a bit of a gamble, but I think that's cost Coulthard a serious opportunity this afternoon. I don't think he quite had the pace anyway of Häkkinen and Schumacher, but in any event, not even on the podium, down there in 4th place. So he loses a further 7 points to teammate Häkkinen in the World Championship.
And for the 3rd time in his first season of Grand Prix racing, Jenson Button finishes in 5th position to get 2 World Championship points, and another absolutely brilliant drive, which will move him ahead, I think, of Jacques Villeneuve up to 7th position in the World Championship in his first season, but that's subject to confirmation. Meantime, just to confirm that Mika Häkkinen for McLaren and Mercedes-Benz has won the Belgian Grand Prix by the narrow margin of 1.1 seconds after 190 miles plus at Spa from Michael Schumacher, with Ralf Schumacher in 3rd place. Sure enough, Häkkinen is now 6 points ahead of Michael Schumacher in the World Championship. David Coulthard is now 13 points behind his teammate Mika Häkkinen. Coulthard in 3rd place, and I suspect that very soon Ron Dennis will be having that discussion with David Coulthard and asking him to defer to Mika Häkkinen, as he did last year, to enable Häkkinen to make it 3 World Championships in a row, McLaren hope. Barrichello is still in 4th place in the Drivers' Championship. Ralf Schumacher is in 5th position, and he's displaced Giancarlo Fisichella, who goes down to 6th place. So a superb race for McLaren, a superb race for Williams BMW, with those 5th places for Button and 3rd places for Ralf Schumacher. And of course, in the Constructors' Championship, McLaren have quite dramatically extended their lead. Up onto the podium then, and now the Mika Häkkinen trademark, the punched fist, and the Finnish national anthem. A very emotional time for Mika Häkkinen. Yet more in charge of the Drivers' Championship, the British national anthem for McLaren. No wins without Finns. Well, not here in Belgium anyway, as a very proud Joe Ramirez of McLaren watches his man Mika Häkkinen on the top step of the podium yet again. And there is no doubt now, after the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa, that McLaren have the advantage, that Mika Häkkinen has the advantage. McLaren have worked long, hard, patiently and dedicatedly under Ron Dennis and Adrian Newey, their technical chief, and all the other people at Woking that have done such a terrific job for the team, and of course at Ilmore Engineering, who make the Mercedes-Benz engines at Brixworth. So McLaren go now to Italy at Monza in 2 weeks' time knowing that their car will have the sort of advantage over Ferrari that it had here in Belgium. Not a big advantage, but enough for them to win the race. But Ferrari on their home turf at Monza will be straining every muscle to regain the initiative, as of course will Michael Schumacher. And congratulations to Ralf Schumacher, who gets his third place award after a magnificent drive, a very, very worthy drive. So McLaren can be very happy, so can Mercedes-Benz, Ferrari less happy. Williams and BMW together, I should think, must be ecstatic. They didn't expect a season like this.
It's welcome to the first three in the Belgium Grand Prix 2000, Mika Häkkinen, Michael Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher. Mika, starting with you, it was an absolutely incredible race to watch. What was it like to be part of it and win it?
Well, it was incredible. It was incredible. It was very difficult, unusual situations, including my spin was not obviously planned. But the curbs here in Spa are very, very difficult and very slippery. And when they catch you, it's nothing what you can really do. I was lucky to stay on the track and able to continue, and I was able to start changing Michael. But it was a fabulous race to drive and really enjoyable, and the car was better and better all the time.
As a consequence of the spin that you just mentioned, you made up for it with an absolutely spectacular and heart-stopping overtaking manoeuvre. Can you talk us through that?
Yes, it was quite a different one. Normally that kind of situation is unusual to overtake somebody on a straight line when the back marker is between us. And I knew that way following Michael, you know, it's no point to try to follow him and then try to overtake him and at the straight, because obviously he's not going to give me a room. Is correct?
Yeah, I make it difficult.
So I took the plan B and I went completely inside and overtook the back marker, and at the same time overtook the Michael, and I could tow also from the back marker, so it gave me extra speed, and it was great overtaking maneuver, and I loved it.
We were talking about the overtaking manoeuvre with Mika. How was it from your viewpoint?
Obviously, I was quite lucky or happy to see this back marker in front of me, because I knew I was a lot slower on the straight line speed from what the team told me. So being in slipstream of the guy in front of me, I thought it will not be enough for him to catch me. And then obviously once there's somebody on the same road, then normally there's only two cars that fit next to each other. But Mika did really an outstanding maneuver to pass on the inside there, because that was unexpected for my side. But honestly, if he wouldn't have catched me there, I think he would have catched me a lap or two later, because he was too fast down there, and you allowed to move once the line, and he would have taken me on the outside, to my view. I tried my best. It was not enough today, but we got 6 points, and we keep the championship alive, even though we made it a little bit more difficult today, but we will keep going for it. I mean, it's not the end now.
Thank you very much, Michael. Ralf Schumacher, the ever-improving Williams, you're third today. Do you think as the season goes on you might be able to get a win?
Well, I think certainly we thought that we were close today in rain conditions. That would have been the only chance for us to be relatively close to the top, I thought. But we saw today that Mika was outstandingly quick and compared to anybody else basically. So that was not possible. We're working on it, obviously. I think we are definitely the third team in the World Championship now. We try to stay there and get some more good podium or points finishes.
How was your car today in these mixed conditions? Because you didn't have much time in the warm-up, obviously.
We were pretty much prepared for the rain, so we had a sort of medium setup, which I must say was pretty good. I mean, except the two in front of us and some other just before they pitted, we were relatively quick, so I could stay ahead of Kuta. I had a little bit of a problem towards the end, so I thought the race was over. It was 4 laps or 5 laps to go. I had a throttle problem, so I went into a turn and nothing happened anymore. So it was like fuel out, but it was throttle. But it came back alive, and luckily till the end.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Mika, back to you. Next, we're down to Monza and Ferrari territory. Do you think you can silence the Tifosi and keep your championship lead?
We will have a testing next week, first of all, in Monza, which is important, particularly because the circuit has been modified now. So it's going to be a little bit learning in the first day to understand that corner and to find the best out of it. And then when we have finished those test days, I hope in those days we are able to find the best possible setup and performance of the car, the coming Monza Grand Prix, and I'm seeing all the possibilities to be there quick and challenging.